Good evening. Welcome to our Committee of the Whole meeting. It's Tuesday, April the 23rd, and it is 6:30 p.m., and I'm going to be calling our meeting to order. We're going to start with a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. I was reflecting on the hope that everything that started today on Walton Street will go smoothly and on time. Moving on to our land acknowledgement, the municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mishi Sagik Anishinaabe traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as rights holders and stewards of the lands and waters in which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to item 2, does anybody have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? I note that none were received prior to the start of today's meeting, seeing none. Moving on to item number 3, we have no correspondence this evening. Moving on to item number 4, items for consideration. 4.1, report CS 0824 re-twinning agreement with Nadvirna Ukraine. Does staff have anything further that they would like to add before we consider this report?
Thank you, Mayor Hankivsky. Just very quickly, this report follows up on council direction received previously. In early 2024, it advances the concept of a twinning agreement with Nadvirna Ukraine. What we're recommending is to start small, make it symbolic, and grow from there. This is the same approach used by multiple other municipalities that have considered this sort of sister city or twinning agreement. And the simplicity of the agreement allows you to sort of build year over year, adjust as necessary. But what's being recommended tonight is to authorize the mayor and the CAO to negotiate an agreement if council so chooses.
Thank you very much. Any questions or any comments on the report? Okay, seeing none, the recommended action is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Less, second by Councillor Adam, and all in favor? Thank you, and that is passed unanimously that council authorized the mayor and CAO to negotiate and enter into a twinning agreement. Moving on to report 4.2 FS 0724 re 2024 property tax levy bylaw. Does staff have anything further that they would like to add before we consider this report?
Thank you. I just note this is our annual levy bylaw that's required to set the tax rates for the year. On a real positive, we had higher than expected LLRW fund earnings, so that helped reduce both the urban and rural levy for the year. So we've identified the impacts within the report. And are preparing the comms inserts in the tax bills and those sorts of things to support the messaging now that we know what the levy actually will be. Just some fun insight. Our next committee of the whole meeting will be looking to have our budget kickoff for the 2025 budget. So continuous cycle, but we've already been working through as part of our budget roadmap, but looking to do a bit more of a formal look at the roadmap, talk about it and start turning our mind to 2025 as we, focus more on planning. So, okay.
Thank you very much, Director Baxter, and we're all waiting with bated breath to start the budget process again. But I think in all seriousness, I think this approach of starting early, I think we're all looking forward to trying out a new model for the future. Having said that, does anybody have any questions or comments for Director Baxter? Okay, seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder for the recommended action? Moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Less. All in favor? And that is passed absolutely unanimously. Report 4.3 PD 1224 Reactive Transportation Support for Walton Street Reconstruction. Does staff have anything further that they would like to add before we consider this report?
Through the mayor to council, not particularly much. I think this is a pretty good news story. We're proposing to make a bus fare for local transportation in town no cost for the balance of the project to support local residents and to encourage active transportation activities, encouraging people to take our bus more frequently. So I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Just thank you for bringing this forward. It makes complete sense. And I, for one, am really hopeful that this will provide us with an opportunity as a community to get used to other forms of transportation and realize that these are actually forms of transportation that we can be making more use of here in our community.
Thank you. Seeing any other questions, comments? Can I get a mover and seconder for the recommended action? Yes, moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item 4.4, report PD 1324, Municipal Responsibility Agreements for Communal Servicing in Rural Port Hope. Does staff have anything further that they would like to add before we consider this report?
Through the mayor to council, this is pretty straight. This is another straightforward report. We've, I think we've acknowledged that more complex applications are coming to the rural area, and there's more pressure for us to accept larger scale development opportunities that involve communal water and wastewater treatment facilities that have design capacities larger than 10,000 liters a day. And in that case, we have to sign a municipal responsibility agreement, which puts us at some liability and some risk. And so while it is already a basic policy in the official plan, I think this would reinforce that policy and set a strong standard. And it would certainly then, if this is the direction of council, we would then look to open that policy as we go through the official plan review next year to ensure that we're reinforcing this sort of position. But I'm also happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions, any comments? Councillor Mink.
Thank you. So I don't have a question, just a comment, and to thank you for bringing this report forward. I think we're starting to see, especially in our rural area, more development type applications coming forward where we need to ramp up our policies and our protocols and get ahead of that so that we have something to make our decisions off of and something to speak to the community about and hold the municipality as well as the applicants accountable to the policies that are already in place. So thank you for bringing it forward.
Any other comments or questions? I would concur that this is a extremely positive and important step for the municipality. Clerk, did the clerk? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to note there's a small typo in the recommendation. It's just quoting the wrong report. We'll fix that. We'll fix that for the council. But today, the motion would have to state the number 13. Yeah, thank you.
I actually saw that. So I will just then read out the recommended action so that we have full clarity. That report PD 1324 be received and that council pass a resolution directing that the municipality of Port Hope will not enter into municipal responsibility agreements for the establishment of private communal services should it be a requirement of the Ontario Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks through environmental compliance approval. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to report 4.5, PRC 0624, Port Hope Santa Claus Parade Event. Report. Does staff have anything further that they would like to add before we consider this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I would like to highlight that this has been an ongoing conversation in our community for a number of years. This report highlights some of the formal aspects of kind of transitioning the management of the parade as a municipal event, but still engaging and collaborating with the number of volunteers that we have in the community. So it's intended as a receipt for information and giving you the background of that transition.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? I did have a really quick question, and I'm wondering if you might be able to answer. Is there any possibility in the future to actually finding a sole sponsor for the Santa Claus Parade?
Thank you. A good question. We are working through a sponsorship kind of program for department activities and events. We do find that there are times where, we're seeking sponsorship for March Break Camp, and then we're into Canada Day. So internally, from a staff standpoint, we are kind of looking at a calendar sponsorship plan. And we've done a lot of work related to Canada Day sponsors, including the parade. So we've had some good success with growth from a parade standpoint. So transitioning into a Santa parade, it is something that we would certainly be looking at. Again, the flavor and the approach from a community standpoint remains to be seen, but it is something we're looking at.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So can I get a mover and seconder for the recommended action listed on the agenda? Moved by Councillor Todd, seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favor? That is passed unanimously. Moving on to report 4.6, WE 0524, RE 2023 Drinking Water Quality Management System Management Review. Does staff have anything further that they would like to add before we consider this report?
Thank you. This is another good news story from our water division. The drinking water quality management standard is required to be reviewed annually, and the last review completed showed that there were no deficiencies or concerns, and that the system is effectively managed and is performing very well.
Thank you for that. And it is definitely one of the good news and always positive stories for this municipality. So thank you for that, Director. Any other comments or questions, Deputy Mayor?
Director Davidson breezes through, but doesn't highlight actually how glowing the report really is, with the only recommendation for change being the change of one word in our policy from management participates in the review to management undertakes the review. That's literally the only thing that was recommended as a change. So I don't think you can get any closer to perfect than that. So well done to the team. And just for the community, they're out there flushing hydrants right now. So it's a great opportunity to give them a pat on the back when you see them flushing the hydrants in your neighborhood.
There you go. Okay, can I get a mover and seconder for the recommended action? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by Councillor Todd. All in favor? Thank you very much. Moving on to report 4.7, PS 0924, Re-Emergency Response and Training Agreement with Cameco Corporation. Does staff have anything further they'd like to add before we consider this report?
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf I broke it. On behalf of Director Williams, he's unable to attend this evening. The report in front of council is just to highlight the ongoing positive relationship between Cameco Corporation and the municipality. The Memorandum of Understanding has been entered into since 2007. It has undertaken multiple forms over the course of the 17 years, but this agreement is going to just update all of the training requirements and ensuring that everyone is being safe and protected, and the appropriate bylaws attached for your consideration as well.
Thank you very much. And yes, Cameco is an amazing partner to this municipality, and certainly a leader when it comes to this kind of training and emergency preparedness. So this is positive as well from my perspective. Does anybody have any other thoughts, comments for this? Okay, seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder for the recommended action? Moved by Councillor Adam and seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favor? and that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 5, there are currently no notices of motion on the agenda tonight. Moving on to item 6, there is no new business. And moving on to item 7, which is our question period. It is now time for question period. Remember, question period is for questions only, and it's an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of council. Please keep your questions direct. Please note that this is not meant to be an avenue to ask questions directly to staff. If you have questions specifically to council members, you can ask them now. So anybody from the public, if you'd like to come up.
Okay, we just had Earth Day. I was wondering, it got me thinking about different things in town. I also looked at my water bill, which got me thinking about different things in town. And I was just wondering, is there some kind of, would you be able to work on some kind of program where if people were, say, put gardens into their front lawns, there's also a thing called permeable asphalt that you can pave your driveway, but it allows the water to go through so that it doesn't go into the sewer system. My water bill says basic water bill, then water usage, and basic sewer charge and sewer usage. So I'm just wondering if there's some way that, you know, that you can do that. Yeah, the other thing, I forget now, but that was the big one. That if there was some way that you could encourage through a tax or a water levy or a rebate or something like that, encourage people. Oh, I know what it was. Is there in the new property standards thing that's going through? Is there anything that says you can't grow a front yard garden? There's.
Thank you, Ed, for those questions. I'm just going to, in terms of the first question that you had about the driveways and the water use, I think that's something that we can take forward to staff to get back to you on. In terms of your second question, I think that the deputy mayor would like to comment.
Thank you. Yeah, the Environmental Advisory Committee actually met last week and had a very lengthy discussion about the issue of front yards and clauses in the property standards bylaw that refer to the use of yard space and what's allowed and disallowed. And the conversation will generate a list of recommendations that will be going to staff to be included in that, the recommendations that come forward for that property standards bylaw. But the kinds of things you're talking about were definitely part of that conversation. And I would say also long-term, it's the kind of thing, this kind of question and feedback would be really helpful as part of the community consultations around the community climate emergency action plan, which will be kicking off in the next few weeks. So I think you're on a good thought tangent there. Yeah.
I should know that. It's a shame to see just plain green lawns when we could be growing food for our neighbors. You know, like if everybody had a garden, people could grow different things. And it's just
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for those really thoughtful questions. Does anybody else have any questions to ask? Yes, please come forward, and if you could just introduce yourself and provide us with your address.
Yes, good evening. My name's Rob Argue. I live at 13 Corbett Street in Port Hope. I just have two questions. The first one is, does Port Hope have a tree planting strategy? I think the tree canopies, been reduced by quite a bit in the last few years. And just wondering if we have a target to plant so many trees a year and sort of how we're tracking to that. Just wondering.
Thank you for that question. I'm going to see if any of the directors would like to answer that. I do know that we have a bank of trees that's constantly being replenished, but in terms of a specific strategy, I'm going to let Director.
Yes, we do have a
Davidson
municipal
talk about it.
forest master plan that does have planting targets. I don't recall what those are. I would have to review the strategy, but we do have one, yes.
We would be happy to get back to you with the detailed information about the strategy and the targets.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And my other question, well, I guess to start off, I'm pretty disappointed with the 8.3% increase to the total property tax bill. But I'm just wondering if there's anything that we're going to do to ensure that next year's increase is significantly lower, maybe closer or below the rate of inflation, for example.
Well, we're starting the budget process, as you heard, early this year. We will see how it all unfolds, but one of the ongoing challenges that we have faced as a council is inflation, the rising costs of almost everything, coupled with an aging and failing infrastructure. So all of those things have come together into a perfect storm, but we are entering into the next budget season, so we will take your comments into account as we continue to move forward.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Mick.
Through the chair. So thank you for that question, and I appreciate this year we're approaching the budget differently. So we'll have sessions earlier on, as opposed to 2 full days at the end of the year. And every year I hear fantastic ideas and thoughts coming from the public after we've had the budget discussion. So I really encourage the community to follow along when we start it soon. There's a lot of really good ideas that we just don't think of here at the table. So whoever you speak to, please follow along and give that feedback to us. I'm sure everybody here would be happy to receive that.
And I would just add to that, not only do we have more time available this time around with this process, but it's also true that it's difficult to get folks excited about discussions around the budget until decisions are actually made in terms of increases. So again, to Councillor Mink's point, we really do encourage the public to get involved in the early stages, to take advantage of all the engagement opportunities that we'll have so that we can gather those ideas and thoughts. But we need for the public to come forward. Deputy Mayor.
I'm picking up on Mayor Lena's very diplomatic response, which I think is absolutely correct. But I also would like to push it a little further and say something maybe that's an inconvenient truth, and that is that every dollar we spend as a municipality is also subject to inflation. So the notion that we would keep tax increases below inflation, I think, is highly problematic and is in fact the reason why we are in the financial straits that we're in today, because we have been trying to maintain services while not keeping up with inflation over many decades. And the result is that we have not been saving for the expenses that are now coming our way fast and furiously, right? The work that's happening on Highland Drive was unanticipated, but we hadn't saved for it, right? These are things that are coming our way. And the reality as well, when we're talking about inflation, is we tend to think of inflation as being the consumer inflation. So the inflation we all see at the grocery store. But inflation on much of the work that we're doing as a municipality related to construction and core infrastructure is subject to a different rate of inflation. And that rate of inflation has been higher than 10% and even pushing 15% over the last number of years. So the same time as we're being asked to consider keeping tax increases below inflation, the reality is the things we're buying have inflated by significantly more than the consumer price index. So the math just doesn't, unfortunately, add up, and we're going to have to start getting used to that concept.
Um,
I see.
but
Okay.
still, thank you for the question, and we are always at this table trying to do our very best in terms of due diligence in our decision making, especially around spending public money.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from the public or the audience? Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for coming this evening. And this concludes our business to be covered on today's agenda. And I am in a position to adjourn our meeting at 6:56 p.m. Thank you.